put it lightly. But for a change, I get to do some fun stuff with LiveShowy. So I'm looking forward to today's live stream. So yeah, just a quick recap on where I've been, what I'm planning on tackling today. So previously I've been working through authentication using WebAuthn and security keys, Touch ID, that kind of thing. And then wrapped that up, moved into role-based authorization. So built up a few modules about that. And last week I think I finished the work on managing those roles. So that was a lot of fun. I learned a lot about actually compilation in Elixir and Phoenix. And even did a quick demo with the authorization stuff. So I'll be posting that. There's a clip on YouTube. I'll be posting that to my Twitter later on. I think it's actually scheduled for noon tomorrow. So I'll be keep an eye out for that tweet tomorrow. But yeah, so what I'm doing today is picking up where I left off on building instruments and a collaboration space for those instruments. Kind of getting back into working with Tone.js. So Tone.js is the open source package that I'm using for generating sounds in the browser. And it's really cool because at least in Chrome or Chrome-based browsers, you can actually plug in a physical keyboard, like a MIDI device, and a musical keyboard. We're not talking mechanical keyboards. We're talking about like musical keyboards, and like this one here. So this is a fairly inexpensive keyboard you can pick up. It doesn't produce its own sound. It's just a MIDI controller. So it's got some drum pads, but it's also got, a couple of octaves on the keys and some controllers and knobs and stuff. So, but really importantly for me is it actually has an arpeggiator. So that means that I can tell it to play some notes and it will keep repeating those notes, and I don't have to sit here and play while I'm working through code. So that's really, really handy. Got a couple of complaints about the keyboard, but it's fine for what I'm doing, at least for now. So, and I'm also not a pianist or keyboardist, so if you hear some whack music today, I played drums a few times, so that's why. So yeah, let me shuffle the Twitch studio around just a little bit, and then I'll start sharing. Here we go. So I'm actually referencing a lot of code that I built up for the original version of LiveShowy, or like the first prototype. So I do have a lot of code written, at least for the way that it was designed. And so I'm not copying and pasting or like importing everything from this application, but I'm kind of coming in piecemeal and grabbing things that I don't necessarily need to rewrite, like handle web MIDI devices. So this is a LiveView hook. Well, I mean, in JavaScript, it's just a JavaScript object with a function, that is actually a callback for Phoenix LiveView. But this will be used to kind of report back to the server when the browser has a MIDI device connected. So this will be used in some places, like any part of the application that people might be playing music with each other or even just on their own. Hooks like this are going to be kind of part of what makes everything work. So, and by the way, I guess we could start talking about what is WebMIDI. So, WebMIDI is it's a I don't know, is it a spec or is it a feature? Well, I'll call it And it's a modern browser API, so it just happens that it's only implemented in like one particular type of browser. So this isn't something you can use in Firefox or Safari. With an asterisk, I think there is maybe like an extension or something in Firefox that you can use to interact with MIDI devices, but it's it's only supported natively in Chrome and Chromium browsers like Edge, and there's a few others as well. So with that caveat out of the way, the WebMIDI is really cool because it gives you a fairly straightforward API for managing like device connections, success and failure cases, and also all of the events. So when you're playing notes, turning knobs, pressing buttons, and that kind of thing, using the pitch wheel, all of those events get sent to this. You can access all those events through this API. So if you want to kind of understand WebMIDI more deeply, I would definitely recommend checking out the MDN docs for WebMIDI API. It's a really handy API for making any kind of digital music through the browser. This is not going to allow you to, like, for example, play like a guitar through an app, through an application. This is really something you'll use for MIDI devices, typically keyboards, but also drum pads. There are, like MIDI clarinets or like wind kind of instruments that are built with MIDI, and I think maybe even some types of guitars might have some MIDI capabilities, but not really something you'll use for stringed instruments or like analog like sounds. So that's one piece of the puzzle. So we've got the WebMIDI API that's available in Chrome, and that allows me to interact with a physical MIDI device. And then we have Tone.js. So Tone.js is, I'll just open a new tab here. So this is an audio framework for creating interactive music in the browser. I won't read everything word for word, but what's really cool is it will let you, like, if you've ever kind of tinkered with synthesizers and that kind of thing, it will kind of make sense to you, I think. So like you have attack, sustain, delay, release, attack, sustain, decay, and release. Those are the kind of the primary controls you have whenever you're working with synthesizers for like shaping the waveform or like the attack. I don't know how to explain it. But those are the controls you have kind of at the most basic level. And it has a few kind of components you can use. So these are the classes that are, this is a JavaScript library. So these are classes that are built for JavaScript. The first one I'm working with is polysynth. So it allows you to play multiple notes at a time. The rest of these are, some of these are polyphonic synthesizers. Like I'm not really sure. I'll have to look back into FM and AM. I'm not really sure if some of these are strictly mono. Obviously, the mono synth would be a mono. That means that, like, mono means you can only play one note at a time. Poly means you can play multiple. So there's a lot of areas in this framework that I've not even opened or looked at yet. But the pieces that I have used so far have been really, really, really good and really easy to work with. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff in here that I think I'll be kind of digging into further in the future. But yeah, there's some cool stuff in there. So that's Tone.js. What else? So I did build up like an initial live view and started a new branch for this. Okay, I'm getting some warnings about these attributes that actually need to be moved into the options. So I'm going to go ahead and probably get that done Well, it's out of the way. I haven't planned like everything I'm going to be tackling today, but I think we're at a good starting point. So these are the controls that I had started with the first prototype for LiveShowy. These are range HTML inputs. So it's just a slider that you can move back and forth, and you can set like a minimum amount, maximum value, steps, and a bunch of other stuff. For this application, these controls are a range of 0 to 1. And so you can see that it's actually, these are float values. And that makes sense for the Tone.js library. The first thing is that the browser, with security constraints over the years, they've introduced, for good reason, they've introduced controls where you can't just start generating sound before the user has like performed some kind of interaction to enable that sound. So think about like back in the day, you could start playing MIDI or playing like an audio clip as soon as a page loaded, and you know, that's usually fun, but it could be either annoying or at worst like potentially dangerous if you've got like something not safe for work that plays. So browsers have added a restriction where you can only start generating sound in most cases after some user interaction. So most web pages you open will not be able to generate any sound until you click something. Same applies here. So this instrument needs to be turned on before it can actually do anything. But now that it's on, I can start playing notes. And I'm not sure if I have control over the level of this. So I don't have a volume control right now. Let me just pause the note. But I think that came through the live stream. So yeah, I can play notes. I can set the arpeggiator to play a scale. So with my limited piano knowledge, I do know that's a C major chord, or a C major that's being arpeggiated. What's really cool is, so this currently, a couple things. Let's see, do I have, so I've stopped logging all of the notes. I think. Anyway, so I'm going to come back to that. So the browser's generating these sounds. Keys are being played basically from the keyboard, maybe a little bit loudly. And then the browser has Tone.js, so it will respond to those MIDI notes. Tone.js will generate some sounds through the synthesizer, and those come out of my speakers. You're able to hear it because that audio also routes through Twitch Studio. So fun stuff. I can also, so what these controls do is they shape the kind of how the sound is generated. So attack, if I leave it at 0, you'll hear kind of like a real kind of quick snap at the beginning of the note. And then if I change this, well, it's not actually changing. Let me see, what did I? So I did some things between live streams, and I need to make sure things are working correctly. All right, we're going to come back to problem solving that here in a moment, because I think I need to update my event handler. First, I want to get these squiggly lines out of the way. So what happened here was, I think I didn't realize at the time that I made these components or that I added these components, I didn't realize the throttle or debounce actually have to go into the options for these controls. Okay, also I've got some weird formatting things here, so let me clean up a little bit and then we'll start fixing things. While I'm doing this, I did get a new keyboard, like a coding keyboard, and that's going to be a fun journey. So it's the Moonlander, and it's a wildly different keyboard. If you've never seen it before, you have two wings. So you have your left and your right are split up into two separate wings. They can be spread as far apart or as close together as it works for your body. So that helps. Just splitting them helps kind of improve your posture and kind of long-term shoulder pain, from what I understand. It can be kind of set up so you can angle it out so that your hands are not laying flat and they're more at a natural angle. I literally just unboxed this a couple of days ago, so I've not had really enough time to go through the training to get used to the tutorial, or like the layout. But it also kind of shifts the rows so they're not all in a flat row. That way it mimics where your fingers would fall on the keyboard. So, quick tangent, that's going to be, I probably won't be fluent enough with that by next week for the live stream, but yeah, when I'm not live streaming or heads down working on stuff, then I'll probably be just getting acclimated to that keyboard. Okay, with that out of the way, just making sure each of these inputs has the same kind of like structure and the same configuration. So I think I'm going to change the step on these. Well, first, before I start changing the step, I need to also add what Phoenix throttle, I think, is what I want to use here. I think this will throttle it by a millisecond so that these values can't be flowing to the server. So the range HTML control, it will fire a change event every time you, as you're sliding, and it can do that very rapidly. So what I'm doing here is I'm trying to prevent flooding or overflowing the server with these events. I want to rate limit those at least a little bit. So I could, so yeah, I think it's a millisecond right now. If I did 1,000, that's the release. Yeah, so if I make this 1,000, that should be a full second. So we shouldn't see any change more than once a second. There we go. So what makes sense here? I think I'll start with just 1 millisecond for these controls at least. And I'm realizing that I've got this disabled attribute that's getting set for each individual control, and it's doing that so these options or these controls are disabled whenever the synthesizer is off or disconnected. So I'm going to wrap, instead of copying that disabled attribute to each input, I'm going to use a field set and kind of disable them all at once. whenever the instrument is not turned on. So I think the way to do that is going to be, I'm just going to cut that out. There we go. And then let's see. So I don't think there's a component in Surface for a filled set. I'm going to double check that here in a second. But I will do this. Disabled. All right, so now I'm going to put all of these inputs into that filled set. Okay, I'm just going to do this with the keyboard. All right, also I need to, so now this field set is affecting the layout, like it's becoming a column, and I don't want that. So I'm going to give it a class of contents so that basically the field set is being used for functionality, but not for layout. So now, very good. I've got these fields that are disabled until the instrument is turned on. So now, yep, everything can be controlled. Actually, I'm kind of curious, can I use Phoenix throttle at the field set instead of on every input? I think I'm going to try that as well. So let's see. Seems like you could do this, right? Phoenix throttle. Let's set it to a second just to make sure it works. It does not work that way. Okay, that's fine. We can always undo. So throttle, debounce. Also, I think those only, I guess it's confirmed, like those only work on individual controls and not on like a wrapper control. Okay, so we've got things cleaned up just a little bit, but I think these notes are still going to... Okay, so my envelope controls are not quite affecting the sound yet. I'm going to look back into that here in a moment. But you'll notice that we're seeing, every time I press a note, you'll see notes showing up or events showing up from the, this is the Phoenix server. So I'm kind of logging those here. Just because I haven't built a handler yet for these. And they may even be, no, I'm not logging them in the JavaScript console. That's fine. I wonder, is this deprecation from Tone or from the browser? Okay. Yeah, it looks like they're... I wonder if Tone has an update. 14.7.77. Nope, that's the one I'm using. So Tone is using a deprecated script processor node, and they could update that to an audio worklet node. So hopefully that will be updated soon. It's not like preventing this thing from working. It's okay. So just wanted to check that out. So if I use my arpeggiator again, so you hear that working quite nicely. Let's see. Bring that down just a little bit. I hope that's not too loud. Actually, I'll move it down an octave. So I can actually make this arpeggiator run a little bit differently. I'm going to try These notes are actually only coming from the browser, so we're not having any hiccups here with network traffic, because those notes aren't even like, yes, we're sending events to the server and they're being logged here, but you'll notice that it's even handling those really well, even though it's spitting them out into the terminal. So do something more fun. I'm just playing random notes. Okay, so we could do that all day. But you'll see, so this is the shape of the data that would be sent into the server, or that is being sent into the server, that I could respond to. But we're not seeing the update envelope. So let me inspect the envelope when it changes. Okay, so we have attack, decay, release, sustain. Attack, decay, release, sustain, release, that's fine. It's pushing that to update synth envelope. Okay, I think I see what I did here. So synth. So I've let me back up just a little bit here. So in the synth JavaScript, this synth hook is a JavaScript hook for Phoenix Live View. So whenever this hook is mounted, first of all, it consoles out a message. It adds a synth property to the window object so that I can check the synth in the console. I don't necessarily need it to be there. It's just something that's easy for debugging while I'm building. So like this could just be like an internal property on the synth object and not necessarily on the window. But then every function after this, or every callback, is using that window synth. Okay, so we know we're triggering notes because we're hearing them, but what's not happening is we're not actually hearing the envelope change. So first thing I want to do is I want to just console in the browser down here. I'm going to console the structure to kind of see. I want to make sure first of all that it's coming into the right place, or it's showing up whenever I change these controls. Sure enough. First of all, this is a polysynth. Let's check the docs real quick because I'm not sure. These are floats, I think. Yeah, they're listed as floats here. Oh, it's actually 0 to 2. Okay, so I need to update my the range of values for each of these range controls. So max should actually be 2. And then I think step should probably be, make this slightly less granular. I don't think this is going to change what we're hearing yet. Okay, at least we're seeing the right thing in the browser. Okay. Interesting. So I think right now it's linear by default. So the shape of the attack. But that could be customized as well. I'll be right back. All right, just a cat being annoying. Sometimes you wonder, all right, is someone breaking into the house like right now, or is it just an annoying cat? So far, it's always been just an annoying cat. Okay, so let's see. So we know the event is being handled correctly. Windows synth should be setting. I think we can get window.synth. I wonder if we can like read the values. Okay, console.log. So I'm going to log not only the values that are coming in, but I want to log the synth attack as well. Okay, interesting. Synth dot. All right, so I think I'm going to move that variable. So I'm going to move it back into the into this object, and then window.synth is going to become this.synth. By the way, that's a shortcut I learned just a week or two ago. Anytime you highlight so I used to do this all the time. I want to change all of my this.synth in the code, in this file at least. I would hit Command D, and that would like incrementally like add, like select additional instances. If you know you're gonna hit all, like if you want to rename something or replace, like update all instances of a particular string, you select it. Then on, at least on Mac, you can do Control Command G, and that will select all instances of that string in your in that file. Pretty handy. So let's see here. Handle mini message. Okay, so this function is actually, now that I've moved the synth into that object, I need to pass it into this function as well, which means I need to do things slightly differently here. And then I think this is all going to work. We're going to find out shortly. Okay, we're not hearing anything. So I think what I'm going to do, actually, let me back up a little bit because I've moved that synth value into the object. But even doing that, like, I'm not seeing, so it's still showing up with the attack as undefined. So I thought that was the problem I was solving, but I'm not seeing any change in the results. So I'm going to back up and just undo those changes. So now we're back on the window with the synth. Cool. Okay, but oh, maybe this is supposed to be, okay, let's go back. So I just realized I was looking at the envelope and not the polysynth, which is what I thought I was looking at. So the polysynth has active voices disposed. Long time active voices. I don't see any, like an envelope or attack property. Okay, so I'm taking the synth, I'm setting the envelope, which will receive each of the current values. Okay, so is that information in here somewhere? I don't see voice active. I don't see anything there. Nothing there. Options envelope, okay. So this should start showing the same results. Very good. Okay, so we're seeing the correct values. Or we're seeing the values change, at least, but we're not hearing change in the actual sound, right? Okay, so I just made an assumption a few minutes ago about the values that each of these inputs could take, and I think I need to look at each one individually. So I need to go back to the envelope, and I need to look at attack. So let's start from the top. Attack, 0 to 2. Okay, and then what about decay? 0 to 2 as well. You can see it. Decay has fewer options for the curve. It could be linear or exponential, whereas attack had a few more options. So release is actually a range of 0 to 5. Go ahead and update that here. So release actually has similar release curves, which actually could be customized as an array of integers or floats. That's interesting. It's like you could have a release that like follows a different shape. Sustain value is the value which the envelope rests. What is normal range? 0 to 1? Okay, so sustain can only be 0 to 1. All right, let's see if we get those errors again. Okay, so we can, actually I'm gonna stop logging the envelope because we know that the server is handling it. We know it's showing up in JavaScript. Okay, we know we're seeing the right values. Decay is 0 to 2. Sustain is 0 to 1. Release, 0 to 5. So we're seeing the right values at least, but we're not hearing the note sound different when we change these values. So window.synth. Okay, so when this synth hook is mounted, we set a property on the window that's undefined called synth. Whenever Phoenix starts synth, so essentially when you hit that button and turn the synth on, it updates the window synth to be a new polysynth. And I think here, whenever we disconnect, we also need to set the synth to undefined again. And that should happen after it's disconnected. Don't think this is really going to change anything, but I just want to kind of get that in there. So the synth is there now. Now it's undefined. Okay. Let's see what else. Quitting applications that I don't need at the moment. Okay, so update synth object or envelope. This is being fired correctly. It's receiving the right arguments. It's setting the envelope correctly, but we're not hearing any change. What gives, right? I wonder if I set the initial value to something else, will it sound different? Interesting. That's not even affecting it then. I'm confused. Like, why are we seeing all the data changing on the server and the client, but not hearing any actual change? So like we're interacting with the same window synth. I'm going to move this function just for the moment. Oh, right. Okay, so I exported that function so it could be used directly in the MIDI module. Okay, and that explains why whenever I was... I may need to rethink this. So Windows synth, then handle MIDI message, which is going to receive a message, event data. it's also not like it, like the velocity's not even being like, so velocity, like the lower the velocity, it's like the lighter you're hitting the key, so the quieter the note should be. It seems like it's not even using that. So this should be the shape of the message here. The message comes in as a status, note, velocity. Like we know those are correct because whenever I press a note, the note starts. And whenever I let go of the note stops. Whenever I move my finger to different notes, I hear different tones. I hear what seems to be the correct tones. And this is a way of taking the note that comes in. Let me just, I think I need to console log this just to be sure I understand what's, what log. So this will be note and hertz. So the Web MIDI API, whenever you press a key, you get this integer that represents that key. And then Tone.js needs to convert that either into like a note name, which could be, let's see here, where's polysynth? So polysynth, it could either be like this, C4, E4, A4, and this is what it would sound like. So that's a chord. Or it can be a hertz. So instead of using these letters and numbers, which would be kind of complicated to translate, instead of doing that, I'm just sending hertz. So I'm converting the note to a hertz using the frequency module. That seems to be doing what it's supposed to do. Trigger attack. Maybe my arguments are wrong. Okay, so I think I removed time dot now. I'm not really sure if it needs to be in here, but I'm gonna add it back so that we've got all three arguments. Oh. So this is gonna be tone.time. Maybe not. Oh, tone.now. Derp. That does seem to add a delay though. There's a little bit of latency there. No latency. Okay, so that seems like I don't really need to add the tone.now. Yeah, this doesn't make sense. Just doesn't make sense. All right, I'm going to take a quick break. Going to give it about 5 minutes, but I will be back. right, I'm back. So I think I'm going to come back to this issue with the envelope not updating. Like I said, I don't want to get bogged down in this. This is something you have to do sometimes, like making changes. Seems like things are working, but you're not seeing or hearing, in this case, the result you expected. So sometimes you just got to set it to the side and come back to it, work on something else. So that's what we're going to do. So like we can play notes, we can have a little bit of fun at least, so we can't necessarily hear the difference whenever we make these changes. Wouldn't it be great if I just came back and it was working? I swear this was working last time I did this, last week. So yeah, it's weird. Okay, like I could seriously sit here and like hack away at this, but I don't know. That's probably not super fun. By the way, if you're watching, you can actually send a message through the chat, and love to know what's interesting or what you might want to see. So okay, so we can play notes. To share the screen a little bit. Not sure what the right level is here for this, but we'll leave it right about that. Okay, so that's working. But again, this is only generating sounds in the browser, even though it is sending events to the server. Now, why am I sending events to the server if I'm only hearing the notes in the browser? So the whole point about this live view is that it will allow me to perform in real time, or to practice or whatever, maybe write a song in real time. It'll allow me to collaborate with somebody else somewhere on the internet in real time. Maybe with a little bit of latency. That's something we'll probably just have to tackle a little bit further on. So, okay, I think for now I'm going to kind of hide or kind of ignore these MIDI message events, just so that they're not polluting the shell. Like, I know they're working. I don't necessarily need. I think I will go ahead and pattern match on the message, which is a list of the status, the note, the velocity. Then we have the socket. Then we're going to no reply with the socket unchanged. And then we're going to leave these here, but I just want to ignore them for now, so that so hopefully now whenever I play notes, those aren't showing up in the shell. So these notes, like, there's no reason to really save these into a database or a logging service that I can think of. 'Cause these are going to be, ephemeral performances. There may be a reason, like, so yeah, this app might actually have a feature eventually to like record all events from yourself and from a collaborator into like a MIDI file, and I could see that being useful. But like these notes, these performances don't need to go into the database. That would be like, especially with all the velocity and speed that like these notes might be played, that would be a little little much for the database to handle. Even like an ets table might be, like it could handle it, probably for a few performers playing like Flight of the Bumblebee all at the same time, but I could imagine that running into problems as well. So anyway, that's just a tangent about about persistence and why. So I don't think I necessarily need persistence about each note that's being played. Would it be interesting to like log which types of devices are being connected? I could see that being interesting, but I don't really have I don't want to start logging everything before I understand what I want or need. And also before I have a real good logging design or like a plan for like where things should go. There's some options, but I haven't thought deeply about that. So what can I tackle next? Okay, I think I'm going to fold up these functions so I can focus a little bit better. So right now I have a collaboration room. This thing here, this is the live view. So what the code we've been looking at is actually a live component for the synth object, which is it's a few things actually at this point. So this live component is basically a form for all of these controls. It has the button. It has a hidden input just to handle the web MIDI devices hook. Then it has those fields. But the kind of that's actually being used inside of the collaboration. So yeah, I need to update my name on this, but my naming was all over the place on this module. So a couple things here. So currently the plan is, or like the idea is, there'll be a route on LiveShowy called something like collab, and then you can join our room. So like I might want to tinker around with myself or with a friend over the internet, trying different things with the synthesizer. And then I would have either like a name or like a random UUID or something, some way to access this room. So currently that's the room ID param. And if we take a look at the router, this is where it lives, or this is how we define the route. So it's collab/room, and then we make whatever's after that the room ID parameter. So that's where this comes from. It's in the parameters map. This could actually be set on the mount, but I'm actually using handle params to grab that room ID, and also to grab the URI for like the path of where this live view is living, and it's assigning these to the socket as the room ID and the room URI. That way, this copy link button can trigger another JavaScript hook to copy this like shareable link into the clipboard. So what does that actually look like? So the actual, maybe I think I broke this, or just, let's see, copy link. So I should have a copy link event with a room URI. Copy link. Oh, right. Okay. So I haven't actually copied it to the clipboard, but I've put it into the, I've just inspected it. So what it does is, so I probably don't even need the room ID in the assigns, at least not yet. That may be something I do need once I'm checking for like authorization and that kind of thing. But whenever I hit copy link, for now it's just dumping the room URI into the shell. Actually, there is a way to copy some text. Using these JS commands. We don't want to push, we just want to okay, so this is an example where, so this is from the Phoenix LiveView docs. This is an example of using the JavaScript module to fire like an event on the window. So this is actually a JavaScript hook instead of, well, it's not really a JavaScript hook. It's dispatching a window event to an element. So this 2 is what I'm confused about. So if I pass like the ID of this copy button, is it going to, is that the target? Oh no, so the event target's going to be the button itself. I could make this a data attribute. So that would be kind of hidden, but it would be the value that's copied. Clipboard write text. Okay, let's see if I already have a JavaScript hook for this. I probably do. Okay, currently it's a hook though. So I think I'm going to try replacing this. Okay, yeah, because so I'm using that for the device code, which is kind of a different thing. So this is really not abstracted well enough. This is only for the device code. So I'm going to have to revisit that. But I think what I'll do for now is inside of my main app.js, I'm going to just add a new event listener. This will be, I'm just going to stick with Phoenix as the prefix. I think I'm going to use copy. That's fairly straightforward enough anyway. So text is going to be target. Data set, okay. That'll work. And then I can do navigator dot clipboard dot write text, and that would be text. Else. I think I'll just do a console.error. So not great because it won't tell the user why they're not able to copy to the clipboard, but this is going to be probably a rare thing. And I'll add a better error handling and communication to the user a little bit later. Does not support. Ooh. Okay, so far so good. So this is going to be Phoenix copy. Okay, so this actually won't be used anymore. So that room URI is going to be a text attribute in the data set for this element. And then what I do is I need to alias that JS module though. So alias. Whew. Okay, dispatch. Dispatch 2. I guess, I wonder if 2 can just be myself. Probably not. Okay, yeah, because this is not a live component, so that won't work. Guess this is going to need an ID. All right, so now if I hit copy link, I should see the right thing on my keyboard. Very good. Good, so copy link, the copy link button works now. I fixed one thing at least. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and I need to commit some changes. I've got a little bit messy, I guess, and did not commit everything I'd worked on. So, okay, so I've got a copy clipboard. Oh, a lot of these are unwatched, that's why. So, all right, committing just some CSS changes. Okay. The rest of these I could commit, but things are quite a bit in flux. I don't know. I'll probably just squash all this or reset it and recommit later. So let's see. because by the way, no one else is working on this, so I don't have to like coordinate or like worry about conflicts, which is nice at the moment. Also means that progress is probably slower than it could be. Live component and I don't have the energy to describe everything that's going on in the JS yet. So yeah, so I'm not going to spend time on that. All right. All right, so copy link works. Yeah, so this is the live view again for the collaboration room. So that's the header. We got this is all wrapped in a flex box up here. So there's a flex spacer that will grow between the elements in this flex box. So then I have the room ID and the copy link button, which are all kind of being expanded over to the right, thanks to that flex spacer. And actually this justify between doesn't really need to be there anymore because it's not actually doing anything with the spacer being involved. Item center, let's see, baseline. I wonder what that, no, that does not look right. So yeah, items center, I think is what I need here. All right, so I'm kind of on the fence right now. Like, should this module just be for like synth controls? I think, or does it also need a synth keyboard? And I think those should be two separate things. So I think these generic controls, at least, maybe this module should only just be envelope. Like maybe I need to break things down similarly to how Tone.js is built. So that's one thing I've waffled on a little bit is like, should I, this time around, should I start by like kind of building things and like implementing Tone.js as like modules and components? I didn't do that though. I kind of went and like started pulling things out of the original version of LiveShowy, and I think that may be, well, I think I did that because it would be hard to really like test and like try out these things without having like a live view to put them into. So I think that's why I started with collaboration spaces, but then even that space doesn't really have much of a purpose if there's nothing inside of it. Like I could build a collaboration space that allows, like builds up all the events that I think it might need, but without any actual components inside of it. It's yeah, as I'm talking through it, I think I need to kind of reconsider how I've approached this so far. So that almost sounds like a better idea, is just to kind of build up the collaboration space and then come back to the synth components. That way I can kind of think at a higher level and then get more granular as I go. So let's just hide this for now. Actually, don't think so. Just going back to, you might say, first principles, or yeah, like what am I trying to accomplish here? So with this collaboration space, how do I intend this to work? So this room may have one or more users. Actually, I should put this into my space over here. Okay. Ah, look at this. I already did some thinking. Did I mention earlier that it's been a week? Not just like a week, but it's been a week. Like shit went down. So as a user, I want to collaborate with other users in real time so that we may create music and have fun. That's my user story for this collaboration room or collaboration space. So the acceptance criteria that I've defined for this is so a room must belong to a user who creates it. It must persist room config for reuse. More on that later. Must measure and track latency for connected users. Must allow users to copy a link to the room. Must render an instrument for the current user. Actually, that's already done. It must list connected users with their assigned instruments. It must update the user list changes in real time. Must track other users' instrument changes in real time. Must transmit MIDI events to other connected users in real time. And I think that sums up most of the pieces I have in mind, or like the pieces I have thought through so far. I did list a dependency about instruments being created. I may actually be able to split out like the instrument creation from this. And then some of these acceptance criteria items would have to go as well, because maybe. So assumptions, users will be able to collaborate across the internet with sufficiently low latency. I wonder if there's like a way to or let's see, what would be the latency from, let's say, Los Angeles. If I imagine artist, like high caliber artist using this. So the best case, one-way latency from New York to LA would be 25 milliseconds. Speed of light timing would be 20 milliseconds. So there would be 25 milliseconds of latency. I don't know, I'm seeing 3 different numbers there. But so Wonder Network, I'm seeing higher numbers, average 64-ish. So latency will be more important to some types of music than others. So slower music, stuff with kind of like a slower kind of attack, or like slower notes, or kind of like swelling music, that kind of thing, more ambient stuff. It's not going to be super critical to have a low latency. And those, yeah, should be just fine, even going from LA to New York. Performances or like collaboration with like more rhythmic I guess with more rhythm, those will be more critical for low latency, and especially the faster you get. So yeah, there will be limits about how well this application is going to work across the internet. But I think even with these latency concerns. Like this is just physics. I can't like no amount of live view is gonna reduce that number from like its theoretical maximum or minimum. But still, I think with WebSockets, the latency can be actually pretty close to that. So we'll have to find out whenever I actually deploy this, start testing, from one region to another. But so part of the thing is like I want to, in this room, measure and display and collect latencies so that I can communicate to users like, if latency is above a certain threshold, I'll manage to, display a message that says, this collaboration is going to be best for slower music, something like that. So that's something to be figured out with a little bit of user testing, I think. For now, I think I'm going to work on this collaboration room. So a collaboration room must belong to a user who creates it. Currently, it's not even being created. It's just a room. Oh yeah, so I don't actually have a room module. So right now it's just a live view. So I think I'm going to add a new context and schema for a room. So what do I think is going to be in the collaboration room table? Can I not edit this? Oh, there's no edit button was just hiding. Okay, so let's see. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to say, so it's going to have an ID. It's going to have a, what do I call it? Label, name, title. I think name is what I want there. So it's going to have timestamps, duh. I'm going to have inserted. Oops. Inserted by, so that will be the owner. Actually, it's going to has one owner. Updated by, and I guess it could have updater. So I think it may have, like, how do I, so if I want to invite other people to this room, like, how do I want to structure the data for, like, collaborators? And, like, just watchers? Maybe that's it. So And so that, and the database, I think that's just going to be like an array of user IDs, something like that. And then same thing with watchers. And then as far as like the configuration, okay, so you're gonna need a status as well. Everything needs a status, in my opinion. Yeah, if there's like always an ID, like when I'm building tables, I'm almost always putting a status in there as well, which could be active, inactive in this case, could be locked, could be archived, could be deleted. So many different options we can have there. So what would the statuses be for something like this? And what would they mean? Open. Let's say private, public. That's more about visibility. Which is a slightly different concept. Let's see if these make sense as two separate things. So status would be locked. Okay, so let's say I create a room. I think by default it would be locked and private. And I would be able to give it a name, invite collaborators, invite watchers. And as soon as I invite them, their IDs would be in those lists. And then all they have to do is click on a link, they can join. The room will belong to me, and I think for the most part it's going to be updated by me, but I may have I don't know, I was going to say we might have like room managers. I think that's making it a little bit too complicated for what it is. So I think for this scenario, it would make sense to allow only one user to like make updates to a room, with the exception being like app admins like myself. Like I could update anything and they would be able, like whether it's displayed on the page or not, like a room could be updated by an admin or whoever owns the room. Moderators, that kind of thing. And I think by default it actually should be unlocked. So I think locked is going to be moderation. Archived is going to be unused, basically. And then deleted is self-explanatory. Visibility. I kind of like the YouTube model of, I think it's public, private, unlisted. but I'm not sure if I think only private and public are necessary here, because if I invite somebody, like if I was sharing a link on YouTube, they would be in my watchers or collaborators list. So there wouldn't, like the unlisted, like a person in collaborators or watchers could use that invite even if the room is private. So the room will have a name. I think I'll need like a collaborator limit. And then a watcher limit. So question is, will all of this data allow me to connect 2 or more collaborators up to a limit and allow up to some limit of watchers? That could be 1, could be 0, could be 10 people who can watch the collaborators. I think that now the only thing I wonder about here is that may be better as a join table. So collaborators and watchers, it may make more sense to put those in a join table. Or it could be this array of UUIDs. I think a join table would be better for like the foreign key constraints. So while Postgres, I think, would allow some constraints around like each UUID being related to a user in the database, I'm not really sure what happens if we delete a user. Like what happens to their UUID? Does it automatically get plucked out of the array, or not? And then is there like just extra data, like corrupted data laying around that doesn't necessarily serve any purpose? So maybe watchers and collaborators come out of this table and those become separate join tables. This is the fun stuff you have to think about when you're building up a database, tables for an application you want to run really well for a long time. And you want to get it right from the get-go, if possible. So I think what I'll do here is this will be a so I'll have an ID. Room ID. I'll have a user ID. I think that's it. And then timestamps and inserted by a. Next, we need that for like potentially auditing or just knowing who added a collaborator to a room. This isn't really something that would be updated, so there's no need for an updated by column. But we'll have timestamps. Then I think just basically the same thing for room watcher schema. If you're wondering why I'm doing this in GitHub in my, like in a ticket or in a issue or whatever, it's because like as I'm thinking through one table, then another table, and another table, like I could do this in the Elixir code directly, but I don't know. I like to have this thought process documented so that like as the code changes, I can look back at this and make sure I'm not missing anything. make sure that I have a kind of the story of what I'm trying to accomplish in one place outside of the code. So that's what I'm doing here. All right, is there anything else I need? So I don't think we need to like keep track of like devices within the room configuration, like MIDI devices. I think each user is going to have like preferences or settings they can save for like synthesizer configurations, which are like going to be kind of like handled by Tone.js. I think that will also be a separate concern from like the collaboration space. I think we got enough to start with at least, and then as I start building, we'll see if we need to extend things a bit. Okay. So I think once I update the schemas and the code, I will probably update this just to reflect a little bit more accurately what I'm doing. So do I call this a room? I think so. All right, so def module. Now I'm back in familiar territory. All the stuff with like WebMIDI I'm semi-familiar with. Tone.js, slightly familiar with. I'll be getting my hands dirty a little bit more, but I'm going to come back to that after I get this collaboration room more defined. So this will be LiveShowy.rooms.room. Schema. Let me make sure I'm following the same pattern. Defining we'll just do that. Okay, then I think I would use ecto schema. I'm going to import ecto change set. I will need the user as well, so I'm gonna alias liveshowy.accounts.user. I'm gonna do all the primary key stuff. Wait a minute. I could just generate, well, I could generate this. But I'm going to write it out just to show, I don't know. Foreign key type is going to be binary ID. Okay, so now we've got schema rooms do field. So you can think of this kind of like a chat room. Instead of people sending messages back to each other, they're sending Actually, that may be a feature, but this particular room is for like sending music notes to each other. So what do we have here? We have status, ecto.enum. So we're going to alias that as well. Then, so values could be what do we say? Unlocked, locked, archived, and deleted. Default will be unlocked. All right, the next field is going to be visibility, similar. Private, public, private, public. Default is private. Okay, the next field is name, string. The next one is collaboration limit, or collaborator limit. Integer, and then I think the default is going to be 10. Let's say 5. Let's say like initially this is for like a small band, maybe a duo that might have up to 5 musicians playing together. But yeah, we'll see if that is going to be editable by the user. Watcher limit, integer, default. Let's say 5 just for now. Okay. Now I'm going to comment these two out because I need to build up. Well, I need to refresh my memory on those associations through a join table. We're not embedding anything in this table. It will belong to creator, which will be a user. More on that later as well. Actually, we'll call that the owner. I don't know if a schema can belong to 2 separate entities. Can it, like specifically, like do I put belong to owner and then belong to updater, or what I'm doing here, like has one updater because I've already assigned a belong to owner? We'll find out. Okay, so that should be all of the fields. Then I'll have a change set. Room matters. You know, I've seen even in the Ecto docs, I think like mixed usage of sometimes you'll see the module as the kind of a pattern match here. And then sometimes you'll see the map as a fallback or a default value, but then sometimes you don't. And I myself am not even consistent whenever I I try to be consistent with at least within a project, or at least within my branches on a project, but you know how it goes. Okay, so room would go into cast, which would take the adders and convert those to status, visibility, name, collaborator limit, and then watcher limit. Then I want to validate required. So we definitely need a status. Probably just need all the same fields, right? Yeah, those are all going to be required. Then let's see, validate number. So this is where I can define like constraints around like absolutely like how many collaborators and watchers do I want to allow for any room within the application. I think for now I'm going to set that as 10, like one at minimum for collaborators. Actually, maybe 0. Like this could be a room without any collaborators. And it could have up to 10 collaborators. But watchers, actually, I think I may. These are going to change. I'm fairly certain. They may even like these integers that I'm hard coding into the change set. Those might move into application config that could be updated at runtime. I've been using Vapor for that on another project, and I actually really like that. So what's nice about Vapor is like, so if I wanted to update these numbers without opening a branch, pushing a commit, waiting for CI, waiting for deployment, waiting for the app to restart or whatever in production, instead of doing all that, I could point these to like some runtime configuration, which whenever the application starts up, it will load some values either from like environment, or there's a few different ways to do that, but it would have some initial values. And then while the application is running, if I wanted to like tighten things down or loosen things up a little bit, then I could go into, like I could log into the app, go in and like update the system environment variables. And then that would allow this application to receive those new constraints without being reset. It would go into effect immediately. So that's something I may factor into this later, but it's not important to do that now. Don't want to optimize that too early. But we do have, we have a nice change set here where, let me see if I don't need anything else there. So so far we have, I think I can go ahead and uncomment these. Okay, so this is everything I defined in the issue. So I have status. It automatically has an ID, but it has a status, visibility. Those are each enums with default values. There's a name field, which is required and has no default value. There's a collaborator limit, which will default to 5. Could be as low as 0, could be as high as 5. Watcher limit, which defaults to 5, could be as low as 0 or as high as 10. Then we have, we will have a collection of collaborators, watchers, and then the room will belong to an owner. and it may have one updater. Maybe not, but it may have one. So I think this makes sense. The only thing I'm thinking about is like these limit columns or fields. Like I'm setting some constraints in the validation about like the maximum number that could be. But if let's say I'm a room owner, like, am I going to really? Like, do I want, like, if I've got 5 collaborators and I want to add a 6th, this would require me to update the collaborator limit field and then add a collaborator, when I think that may not really be necessary. I may, yeah, because I think what you would want to do is just add collaborators, add watchers until you hit a limit that the application has set. So I think I'm going to remove those limit fields, and then going to have to look at the ectodocs. So I want to validate like, I wonder if I can limit the number of associations. Like, let's see. Association constraint. Okay, so I think this checks the associated field exists. This is similar to foreign key constraint, except that the field is inferred from the association definition. This is useful to guarantee that a child will only be created if the parent exists in the database. 2, it only applies to belongs to associations. So I guess I could go ahead and add this for the owner. Association constraint. Is that it? As opposed to... Yeah, that's it. So name. What's confusing here is they didn't show the schema in the documentation for association constraint. So we see the migration where you're creating a table and adding a field that references posts. So yeah, I think this is like this is going to be the field of the belongs to. So that should be, I think that's what I need there. Now, what about, like, I want to put limits on has many. I don't see a way to do that here. Change. I don't really need a foreign key constraint. Okay, so I can do a cast association, but it doesn't show, like, at least like in the options, I don't see any limit. Even if it was an embed. So let me come back to that. I think I'm going to go ahead and create the migration so I make sure I understand that. Invalid association updater and schema. Associated schema. User does not have a filled room ID. Oh, maybe, yeah, maybe this needs to belong to as well. Okay, so it could belong to, I guess, you know, like this room entity could belong to a creator and an updater, at least in ecto terms. All right, by the way, we're in hour 2, so if you're watching, thanks for sticking with me. If you find anything interesting, give me a shout out, or if you have any questions, don't be afraid to ask. Yeah, I think I'll probably go for another, I don't know, we'll see. I plan to go from 3 to 5 on Saturdays, but I can go a little bit longer if I'm in the middle of making progress on something. So I'm going to keep going for a while longer. So I think the next thing here is going to be a migration, which I don't want to just make that file. I'm going to generate it. Add. All right, so for this table, we're going to create table rooms, add. Now I do need to look at, so because I use binary IDs, I do need to reference another migration just to make sure I'm doing this right. Create table. All right. Okay. So I need to do primary key false. So this will prevent Postgres from, or whatever database system, from creating an ID column automatically. So I'm going to do that manually here. Not add. Okay, so now I can use the schema. Okay, so status, visibility, name. Actually, this is going to be a string column. Visibility. Name is also a string. So these enums are being enforced in the application, not in the database, which I think I'm actually okay with. I've kind of gone, I've had an evolution about enums and status tables and that kind of thing. So this to me is acceptable. Like, what are the alternatives? So for status visibility, I could actually define an enum in the migration. So that would create a Postgres enum. So not only would we be checking at the application, but also at the database layer to make sure that any values are like matching that list of acceptable values. The thing about enums in a database, though, is, and I don't remember the distinctions between Postgres and MySQL, much less any other database systems. But if you actually use an enum, like a database enum in the database layer, if you needed to change the available options in that enum, it requires a rewrite of the full table. So like every row needs to be updated to, to receive those updated acceptable values. Not something you necessarily want to do, especially with large or potentially large tables. If you have something that's, 1,000-ish rows, you're not really going to feel any pain even if you take that route. Another option would be like a separate table just for statuses, or like room statuses, and then a separate table for room visibility. And then those would be another, like more associations. So that adds its own complexity. It's not something I necessarily want to have, like, just, I don't want to have more tables than I really need. And I think with the application kind of checking values against enums internally, like this is not an application where I expect anyone to be directly editing the database. There won't be any roles that would be doing that anyway. So, and then if they do, the app can, use a default value, I guess, just to overwrite whatever the database is supplying if someone does something nasty. Anyway, so that's about the enums. So the next thing here is going to be relations. So we need collaborators. Well, first we need owner and updater. So we'll just copy these because these are already good to go. So inserted by, updated by, those also make sense here. Except that we do want to either cascade or delete all. Okay, yeah, we want it to delete all. So what this is saying is if the user is deleted, I want this room to be deleted as well. Like, we don't want to keep a room if the person who created it doesn't exist anymore. I think. So is there any reason a room should be kept even though the original creator is deleted? That's a interesting question. Yeah, I think for now I'm going to go ahead and delete rooms whenever a creator deletes it. And then I could potentially see a reason, say like, I don't know, a singer creates a room and then leaves the band, leaves the platform. It's been handed off to someone else. which raises another point. So I've kind of conflated owner and creator here, and I think I need to not do that. I think this will make more sense. So this is a kind of there's a distinction between a person who creates a room and an owner. Like an owner could, maybe I could create a room and then hand it off, like assign someone else as an owner. Yeah, so I think we'll just leave the concept of an owner out for now. That may be more of a user role type thing anyway. I think I will leave a comment just to kind of save this for later. Okay. So that gives me the inserted by, updated by. And I think that's all the information that this table needs for rooms. Things are a little bit cramped when you're on a 1080 resolution. I'm not gonna commit that live view stuff yet, but I will commit the room schema. Okay, so that works. Let me go ahead and migrate. Mixecto.migrate. Cool. So we have a rooms table. Nice. We're going to ignore the room live view for now. And then what do we need next? We need a rooms context. Let's see. So I'm going to import ecto query. I'm not going to warn. Going to alias. Actually, I don't know if I have a use for multi here just yet, but I will alias LiveShowy.repo. I will alias LiveShowy.accounts.user as well. Okay, so all right, list rooms, pretty straightforward. room repo.get ID, and then repo.preload preloads. Actually going to use the authorization module as a reference. The accounts context, a lot of that was generated by the Phoenix auth generator, and not necessarily, like, there's a lot of stuff in there. So there's less in the module that I built. All right, so this kind of gets me back into a CRUD mindset. So def create. Actually, first I'm going to do change. So like, what do you do before you create? You actually need a change set. So is there a change? Did I even do that? And I don't think I did. New. So let's see. Change room. Room dot change set. I think that's it. Headers. Okay, so then I can do def create room. Which I think we'll just take adders. So then we'll have room being piped into room.changeSet with adders, and then repo.create or insert. Okay, that works. And then we'll take update next. Def update room. Pardon me. Room, and then adders again will be a map of some kind. Then room goes through room, not change that, the adders, repo.update. Okay, and then delete. Yeah, I guess why would I? So I defaulted to an empty map here, but I think I'm going to just require that that the address has an updated by. Wait, why? Hang on. Yeah. This is going to be a separate change set. So where's room? Room. So update change set should be pretty straightforward. I'll be doing def. So I'm using the existing change set. And then I'm also going to basically just kind of add on to that, validate required updated by. I think that's going to work. So the room goes into change set, takes the adders, and then adds validate required. Oh yeah, I did see here that there's no inserted, like it's not even accepting inserted by or updated by. And then it needs to require inserted by during the initial change set. So let's see, creator belongs to. I think that's how I use that. So for the creator, it actually uses the foreign key of inserted by. Updater is actually the foreign key of updated by. All right, I think that works. Okay, so update room, and then delete. Okay. So we have all of our CRUD operations for our room. We have a migration and a schema for the room. Picked apart a couple of thoughts that came up through that process. And by the way, this delete room may not be used frequently since I have like a status of deleted. I think probably what's going to happen more often than not is we're going to update the room with the status of deleted. So it's like a soft delete. And then like an admin, if we needed to for, I don't know, security purposes, GDPR, if that's even a thing, then we would delete the room if we needed to, like if the user requests that. Otherwise, there's not really any user data being stored in this table aside from the user ID. And if the user's deleted, the user, so yeah, the room should be deleted as well if they were the creator. Okay, so now I'm not using the user. I probably don't actually need the user alias here. What can I tackle next? I think I can tackle maybe like the collaborators. And or the owner. Ugh. Pardon me. I think these could each be like owner. Owner could live in the table itself. Because it's just that one value. I think that would be okay. So the column would be owned by. Let's do that. I'm just going to update the migration and kind of reset that migration. So this will be owned by. Okay, and then yeah, I'm gonna update this a bit. So so I think by default the way this is gonna work is the owner will be whoever creates the table, and then the creator can hand it off, or like an admin could assign it to someone else. Then there's no need to delete the room whenever the creator is removed. The only time the room would be deleted automatically is whenever the owner is removed or deleted from the system. Or I think that raises some issues as well, but because what if the owner is deleted? Yeah, I'm not really sure if I should be deleting the room whenever that happens or not, so I'm gonna not delete it. I'm just gonna let nothing happen to the room itself whenever a user, like whenever an owner or creator is deleted. These are like problems for like a year or two in the future, I would imagine. So also I just realized I need to make sure that these fields are not null. Okay, so I'm gonna roll back. I'm gonna migrate again. Okay, I've got rooms context. right, so, oh right, I was gonna add room. It's going to also add, I did add the owned by. Okay, so now for the room, all right, so now I can go back to, let me make sure this is, okay, so we got owned by, so ID, status, visibility, name, owned by, inserted by, inserted at, updated at. Good deal, that's looking like what I want. So now I'm going to work on room collaborators. Yeah, this is actually a many to many because I'm going to be doing a join table. Yes. Okay, so let me update these first. Many to many. I think I just realized I'm in the food mood. I'm in the mood for Mexican food tonight. It just hit me. So if I'm distracted for the remainder of this live stream, you'll know why. So indicates many-to-many association with another schema. The association happens through a join schema or a source containing foreign keys to the associated schemas. For example, association below. Tags, join through. Yeah, okay. So join through. Maybe that's actually supposed to be a string. Okay. Now, okay, Elixir linter crashed. That's interesting. I'm going to go ahead and add room collaborators. Create table room collaborators primary key false. Do so add, see how much of this I can remember. Add ID, I think it's binary ID. Primary key true. Did I get that right? Yes, okay. Add, oops, not ass. Add room ID. References room, okay. On delete nothing, type binary. Type binary. Okay. Type binary null false. Oops. Okay, room ID references rooms. Whenever a room is deleted, we're going to delete all of its collaborators. I think that's simple. That makes sense. So this is a type binary column, and then user ID references users. Okay. If you think my typing's bad now, like it's, I don't know, it's better some days than others, but that Moonlander is going to really set me back for a while. Okay, so room collaborators has an ID column, a room ID column, user ID column to join the two together. And then it has an inserted by so we can see who created the collaborator for a room. I'm wondering, is there like any reason to have like a code? Maybe, but I think that's really a concern for the future anyway. So one thing I'm noticing here is I did not add indexes for these references. I think I may need to do that as well. Okay. So create unique index. Wait, this is the rooms table. I don't need a unique index here. Like, I don't think I have a limit. I'm not going to have a limit of rooms for a user, at least not. I think I'm going to allow a user to have multiple rooms. Index rooms, I think owned by. Okay, for rooms, that makes sense. Then for room collaborators, there's actually no updated by. So I'm going to do create. I will need a unique index here. This one's going to be what, room ID, and then user ID. So like we shouldn't have a user showing up twice for a given room. User ID. Okay, I think that's the indexes we need here. Okay, yeah, that works. And then I'm just noticing here, user roles. These are just associations. So in hindsight, there's no, like, this updated by column is never actually going to be used. So I might delete that, but I'll probably just do that in a separate change set or a separate migration later, since I'm trying to do things the right way with migrations these days. Okay, so now I need a, I don't need a room collaborator schema because it's just using that join through room collaborators. Okay, and I can also say unique on these. Okay, join defaults where. All right, I don't really care about the order, any of the other options there, at least for now. Okay, so collaborators, okay, room collaborators, user. I think that's actually good. So, and I'm going to generate a new migration for room watchers and basically copy and edit the collaborators migration. And this may be close to the last work that I want to do today. Oh, what am I doing? Easy peasy. Room ID, user ID. Okay. I must have a big bad bug somewhere because Elixir LS is or Credo's crashing, not Elixir LS. Let's just try to run Credo. It's compiling. Weird. Okay. I may just need to restart VS Code. Can't roll that out. Okay, so we have, I need to run migrations. Then I should be able to query rooms. Okay, let's see. Great. Oh, these are probably supposed to be binary ID. There we go. I noticed that earlier and didn't actually fix it. So, okay, so that both migrations are in and seem to be working, so I'm going to commit those. Before I commit that, I'm going to launch the app, the shell, and just make sure I can make sure nothing blows up if I try to list rooms. Okay, I think if there was anything wrong with these associations, we would have seen some errors there. Okay, so now I can try to create a room. Why don't I just write test? Because that should be the better thing to do. But I'm not going to do that on the live stream. It's been 3 hours. I think I'm going to go ahead and call it a day, and I'll get through this stuff a little bit more quickly anyway. And then, yeah, so I'll have, I think by the end of today, off stream, I'll have at least test written for all of the CRUD operations around rooms, and then I'll add some functions for adding collaborators and watchers, and test for those as well. And what else? And then I guess if I wrap that up quickly enough, then I might even be able to add some UI into the. I might just scrap the live view that I already built, since it wasn't really fully thought through. And yeah, start some new live views for creating and managing rooms, and then kind of go from there. So cool. If you have joined me, thanks for watching. It's been 3 hours here on Twitch, and worked through some problems today. So built up schemas around rooms, room collaborators, and watchers. Did some kind of maybe more thinking than writing on code today. But also did a little bit of debugging on some web MIDI stuff and Tone.js. Left some problems unsolved so that I could keep momentum going on other things. And yeah, I think I'm going to go ahead and call it a day. So if you want to learn more about what I'm doing, generally speaking, you can find me on Twitter. My handle is @OwenBickford. And then you can also find some code on GitHub if you go to @Type1Fool. And then I hope to eventually in the near future have some pieces of this application open sourced, so that people can see what I'm doing and maybe reuse it as well. So anyway, thank you for joining, and I will catch you next Saturday at 3 o'clock Eastern Time. Bye-bye. This is Owen.